What's up, everyone? Cousin Bobby here. As you know, starting back in March, I shared an announcement on stream that I was looking to begin my indie game dev journey. And today, I wanted to share some updates and progress I made in the first month. As you know, I have no formal training in software engineering or graphic design. My background's in finance and business, but it's been a dream of mine since I was a kid to maybe one day make video games. I feel like with the knowledge and work experience I have gained through the past couple of years, now is the time to pursue the journey. So let's get into the progress that I've made so far this month. All right, first, let's jump into a recap of what I shared last month before I jump into the progress we made. Last month, in the previous video, which is shared in the description below, I announced I wanted to start the journey and jump into indie game development. I spent a lot of time doing research on tools I would use, what type of games I wanted to make first, and how I wanted to approach the game development process. Since then, I ended up purchasing the tools and game engine that I was looking to use to begin this journey. These include Game Maker, Aseprite, and GitHub Copilot. I also decided that I wanted to do a platformer first, a 2D pixelated platformer. I felt like it was a good starting point to begin this journey. So now, let's jump into what we've done so far. For Module 1, my goal was to attempt to just make a platformer that worked, a very basic platformer. Can we make the character move left and right, jump, walk, not fall through the floor? We had very basic sprite designs, very basic animations. Honestly, it was just to make something that worked. And it was tough. There was a lot of problem solving around the move and collide functions and just learning the basic code of how everything functioned with the player object and the player character moving around the map. But as you can see here, we were able to get to a place where the game was working in a basic functionality and format. All right, let's move on to the second week and what I call Module 2. For Module 2, I wanted to improve upon what I had built in the first week. So for that, I decided to improve the sprites in the game. As you can see, the object player was updated. The ground objects were updated. There was background color added to the room. And in addition to refining the code and the sprites, I also wanted to add an object such as a coin that the player could interact with when they were going through the level. And I think I was able to achieve a good starting place to kind of start to fill out the level with the coin and the additional graphics and build a foundation for adding additional objects that the player could interact with as we progressed on this journey. I was a little busy during my third week or module 3 of development, and so I wasn't able to get as much done as I wanted to. But for week 3, I wanted to add a menu that started the game and also provide the help/control button and a quit button if you executed the file for the game, but you wanted to exit out of the file for the game. So as you can see at the beginning of this recording, you can see that there is a menu with buttons that you can interact with when you when you hit the button with the mouse, it actually presses down, so there's an animation there. And in this module, I learned a lot about coding in fonts and interactive objects for the mouse to click. And so it got to a good place where I think I was able to add some functionality at the beginning, and it started to feel like there was the start menu, then there was the game that you entered into. And from there, it inspired me to think about making additional levels in the following weeks, or maybe adding some additional functionalities to the game later on. All right, so in week 4, I wanted to expand upon what I learned in week 2 and week 3, or module 2 and module 3. The goal of week 4, or module 4 as I call it, is to expand upon the multi-room system and the amount of objects the player could interact with. So for this week, I built an additional level that the player could move to, and 2 additional objects the player could interact with. The first object was the spiked floors, which if the player hit, the player would restart the level. And the second object, which was 2 objects, was the flags. The first flag would take you to the second level, and the second flag would take you back to the start menu as if you had completed the game. This week was really cool because it allowed me to kind of see it as more than just a little demo, but starting to actually build what looked like a platformer game, and kind of moving from one level to another level, and kind of expanding that scope and size of the game, rather than just a simple demo, maybe making a vertical slice and growing the game from there. Although this module 5, or week 5, isn't truly within the first month, I wanted to share it because at the time of recording this video, I had done this kind of update to the platformer a couple days, maybe even like a day and a half before recording this. And I felt like it was a pretty big accomplishment in the journey of making a platformer game. And this was adding an enemy that the player could interact with in the game. So in the 2 levels that I had built so far, I wanted to add an enemy that could move, that if the player collided with the enemy, the player had to restart the level. Or if the player jumped on top of the enemy was defeated. And it took a little bit of time encoding the enemy object, but once we created that enemy object, I was able to actually make what feels like a really nice, at least prototype of a vertical slice of a platformer, a 2D platformer game. And it was really cool to see that enemy moving on the screens, to interact with that enemy object, and kind of build those objects that the player could interact with. It was really motivating, and it's kind of inspired me for the next month on expanding what I've built so far in the 5 weeks or 5 modules of this game dev journey. Although these modules were small steps over the first month, I learned so much through the process of experimentation, troubleshooting, development, and I'm really excited to continue to make the game and continue the journey to potentially make games that others can enjoy. This past month has been a really great learning experience that really helped me realize just how much more I have to learn, but also I took a moment to look back and understand that I also learned a lot along the process. All right, so what are the next steps, right? This month, the next 3 to 4 weeks, I really want to focus on adding enemy variations. So I want to add maybe different types of enemies that the player can interact with. I've thought about adding a health system with a collectible health item. I maybe wanted to expand the coins, where when you collect the coins, it's a number that generates on the screen. And I also wanted to take a look at maybe expanding the rooms and creating like scrolling levels where it's not just that one level that's on the screen, but as you move left and right, the map kind of expands and moves. And if possible, add one more level to the game. That's a lot of stuff to do, but I don't have to tackle it all in the next month. I'm just kind of, creating some new ideas to expand what I've learned upon. And I'll definitely look forward to sharing what I decided to work on in the next video. Thanks again for stopping by. I'll be posting monthly updates here on my channel in the Game Dev playlist. If you're interested in following along, please feel free to hit the subscribe button and stay up to date with the indie game development journey. Thanks again for stopping by. I look forward to sharing more about the journey in my video next month. Catch me if I